This podcast was recorded on the ancestral lands on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibway, Dakota, and the Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation.
This is Humans on Rights, a podcast advocating for the education of human rights. Here's your host, Stuart Murray.
Canada does have a National Indigenous Residential School Museum. And my guest today is Lorraine Daniels. And Lorraine is currently the Executive Director of the National Indigenous Residential School of Canada. But she's also a member of Long Plain First Nation. She is a mother of 3 children, a grandmother of 10 grandchildren, and a great-grandmother of 7. She is the second oldest in a family of 11 siblings. Lorraine currently resides in Portage-la Prairie. Her parents are first-generation survivors that went to the former Portage-la Prairie Indian Residential School. And Lorraine Daniels is a second-generation survivor who went to 3 residential schools: Brandon for grade 2, Sandy Bay Indian Residential School for 5 years, and the Birtle Indian Residential School for 1 year. Now, for grade 10 and 12, Lorraine left residential school and lived in a private home for those 2 years. Lorraine Daniels, welcome to Humans on Rights.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Lorraine, before we get into anything about your background, which we want to, 10 grandchildren and a great-grandmother of 7. What do they call you?
They call me Cuckoo.
Cuckoo?
Yeah, short for Cookum.
Cookum, okay, all right. And all of them, whether they're grandchildren or great-grandchildren, they use the same term of endearment?
Yeah, it's Ojibway. For great-grandmother, it's Aniku, but they all call me Cookum, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. And so, do you get a chance to spend a lot of time with them? Are they around you a fair bit, or are they spread out across the province or the country?
The majority of them were they had moved to Kelowna, but they're back now. They're just in the process of moving, and right now a third of them are at my house right now. I spend time with them. Right now I have my daughter and my grandkids at the house because they're in the process of moving and eventually get their own place. But it's good to have them at the house.
Yeah, for sure. So, Lorraine, let's talk a little bit about it. We're going to obviously spend a lot of time talking about your role at the National Indigenous Residential School Museum of Canada. I would have to say that a lot of people probably listening to this podcast aren't even aware that we have a museum of Canada. But let's talk about your life journey. You obviously were a second-generation survivor, and I talked about that in the introduction. When you graduated from, I think it was Arthur Meehan High School, what got you involved? You decided to pursue a little bit of a financial background. What got you interested in that?
I think because I liked working with numbers. That was kind of my interest in high school. And I think I spoke to somebody when I was in the private home. He talked a little bit about accounting and bookkeeping, and it got my interest. So that's how I got started. I lived in the PAW for a while. I worked in an accounting office for about 12 years maybe. And then I decided that I could do a little bit more I could do more than just working with numbers. I decided I would go back to school and do something different.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that, what you did different. But I just want to ask you, Lorraine, when you took your grade 10, 11, and 12, I guess that's 3 years, you left residential school and lived at a private home. What was the process involved for you to get involved or to live in that private home?
Before I left Sandy Bay, it only went up to grade 9. I was about 14 at the time, and they gave us some forms to fill out. And without my parents' consent, I filled out the form. There was 3 different decisions that I had to come up with. One was to go back to a residential school, which would have been in Winnipeg in Assiniboia, or go home and live in my community, or live in a private home, which was in Portage. And so I chose to live in a private home because at the time I was into sports. and Long Plain didn't have any kind of organized sports, and it would have been difficult for me to come into town to be involved in sports because at the time my parents didn't have vehicle. And so I chose to live in town. I lived in a very loving home. I was very blessed to be with a family that were very caring and was part of the family. And so I chose to live there thinking that I would go home on weekends. That didn't happen because they still treated us like we were in residential school, the government. So I would only go home on during Christmas holidays and summer holidays. So I stayed there for the 3 years, and I got involved in sports and Arthur Meehan, and I was selected as a sports reporter for Arthur Meehan, and it kind of got me out of my shyness and also the shock of being institutionalized for 7 years. You know, it was a difficult transition for me, but I think sports helped pave the way for me to get involved in the high school. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of sports did you like?
I was just about in everything. I learned to play hockey in residential school, and I continued on with that. I raced like long distance and short distance. I even did hurdles, even though I'm short. I'm 5'1". Yeah, baseball, just whatever sports. I was very competitive, and I just love sports, and I think that's what kept me in school. I love sports, and I volleyball, basketball. We even played basketball in high school. So I'm 5'1", and I still love. Yeah, I just tried my best.
Good for you. No, love the attitude and love the competition and all that, Lorraine, for sure. Lorraine, just to clarify, you left residential school in Portage for grade 10, 11, and 12. Did you live with a non-Indigenous family?
Yes, I did.
And can I just ask the notion again that you thought you could go away on weekends? Did they have to deliver the message to you as part of that family to say, "I'm sorry, Lorraine, you're not allowed," or "You cannot"? I'm not sure what language they would use to say that you're not going back home this weekend.
Yeah. They had to tell me that I couldn't go home on weekends, and I was okay with that because if I came in town and my mother was in town, then I got to see them.
Yeah, no, interesting. So Lorraine, you spent a lot of time on the economic side, finance side. I mean, you've been Long Plain First Nation finance officer assistant. You talked about spending some time up in the PAW. Then you said at some point that you wanted to go back to school because you thought you could make a difference. What got you thinking that that was an important thing for you to do, to go back to school? And we'll talk about what you went back for in a second.
I think every time I wanted to change careers, I decided to go back to school, and I felt I can do more with an accounting background or bookkeeping background, that I could offer more to my community. And so when I came back from university, I applied for economic development officer in Long Plain. So I stayed there for 7 years, and I just enjoyed helping people. It opened doors for me to work in different communities. I stayed for 7 years in Long Plain, and then I went to work for Dakota Ojibway Community Futures, and that really opened doors for me too to teach small business development. So I did that for a number of years, and it was always going back and forth. Like if I was going to change careers, then I'd go back to university to get that training and education to always improve myself and better myself so that I can have that background to do my job.
So you went to Laurentian University in Sudbury, and what did you study there?
I studied law and justice and Native studies. I graduated, and I decided to come home because my parents were getting older and wanted to be home. I think that was when I applied for economic development and was able to do the work.
Just curious to see, Lorraine, that you started to get interested in law and justice and Native studies, which is a little bit of a, not a pivot, but it's a change from numbers. You're talking about people, you're talking about human beings, human rights, and that sort of thing. Was there a reason that you started to feel that kind of pull to your career?
I think because I wanted to know a little bit more about my background. I took Native studies, and at the time I was interested in law and justice, and was hoping to work in that area, but it never happened. And so with my background, I was able to get into economic development. And at the time, there was a position open, so I applied.
And then you eventually went to the University of Winnipeg and Providence Seminary, where you, I believe, got your master's in Christian educational ministry.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
After I left Long Plain, I was in economic development for a number of years. I wanted to change careers again, and that was kind of one of my goals on my bucket list was to get a master's degree. And I had become a Christian at the time and wanted to be able to go to a faith-based university and to be able to see through God's eyes and to be able to help people. And that really helped me in my personal life as well as working in the community. I went back and worked for my community. I think at the time when I was going to university, I was involved with my church in Winnipeg and did a lot of volunteer work and ministry work. When I came back to Long Plain, I was able to apply that. And I worked with Long Plain Ministries and worked under the leadership of a youth pastor. And we did Sunday schools and did some youth ministry work. And then I worked as well too. So that was, I guess that was my passion was to work in youth ministry and also carry that into my own work as well too, to be a blessing to the community and not just look at it as work, but as a ministry work. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to explore that, but I want to make sure, Lorraine, part of my journey, and I know that I love that you talked about the fact that you're on a lifelong journey all the time. You want to learn, as do I. So please help me with one thing. When we talk about the word Indigenous Residential School, I think I made a reference earlier on and I called it an Indian residential school. What is the correct language?
They've changed it over the years. First it was Indian, Aboriginal, and now it's Indigenous. I guess the correct language now is Indigenous. So we're Indigenous to the land, so it's Indigenous. Yeah.
Okay. So when I see something that is abbreviated IRS, that is for Indigenous residential schools. That's the correct term. So, okay, please forgive if I apologize if I use the wrong language.
When I refer to the Portage Residential School, I always use the old term because back then that was the term Portage Indian Residential School. So I stick to that term because that's how it was, the former Indian Residential School. But now it's like for the National Indigenous Residential School Museum, we use the word Indigenous.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I mean, that's all part of the education which you're involved in. Lorraine, I'm interested to just explore with you the fact that you went to, and I'll call it an Indigenous residential school for your early grades. What was your sense of the purpose of religion at those times? If you think back on those years when you were in an Indigenous residential school.
I came from a very loving home. I lived with my I just want to go back to my childhood years. I came from a very loving home. I lived with my grandparents and my parents. We all lived in the same house. And my grandparents, they followed the cultural teachings. They're very traditional, but they also embraced the Christian way of praying. And so they were able to blend the two. So I learned that as a child to be able to follow those teachings and both teachings. I've done that throughout my life. And then when I was in residential school, I think I was able to accept the religion. Back then, I think I was a very serious child. I took religion seriously. I learned about who Jesus was and who God was. But in the residential schools, they didn't walk their talk. It was they were teaching us that God was a punishing God. We were forever being punished and not being loved. And I didn't catch that till I was older because I got punished as a child when I was in residential school. Prior to that, like I came from a loving home, and you're sent to residential school, and you learn a different lifestyle. You're not getting that love that you had at home. So there was a difference there, and yeah.
So and Lorena, I'm just very fascinated at how you could look at, growing up in a residential school, where, as you say, you were learning about God, but at that point, God was a punisher because you were being punished all the time. And yet you've been able to, reconcile that experience with a more spiritual, deeper experience of where you've embraced your Christianity and you talk about it openly. That, I think, is an incredible testament to you as a human being, that you were able to sort of break through what you experienced as a child. And now you're really a teacher, if you will, and you're the executive director of the National Indigenous Residential School Museum, but you're really a teacher. How did you reconcile what took place as a youth when God was a punisher, or taught? That's how you were taught, So today, talking about your experience as God as a healer, I assume that would you use those terms?
I think as a child, when you learn that foundation is firm, it's grounded in your life, so that stays with you throughout your life. So I did stray away for a while from the churches, and as a teenager, and just I guess kind of mixed up. Eventually, I did go back to church, and then I started with my Indigenous culture. I started questioning it because we were shamed, and even our language, it was almost to the point where I was ashamed to talk my language. So I lost a lot of my language, but I'm regaining it now. I'm kind of getting lost here with the question.
Well, no, you're talking. I asked you this sort of how did you reconcile? I mean, and that's just your sense of when you were younger, and now you're, as you say, you've done a lot of understanding to gather your culture back. You're an Ojibway woman. You're getting your language and your culture back, and which was taken away from you.
Yeah, yeah. So it's taken me over 60 years to accept my culture. And the very first time that was an eye opener for me about the culture was when my mother passed away. They had a traditional ceremony for her at the service, and what they did was they had her in a casket, and as before they were going to take her out of the area, they had her side of the family are very traditional people, the Longclaw side of her family, and her nieces had these whistles that they use when they have their sun dances, and they were dressed in their outfits or regalia. And as they were moving her out, before they moved her outside of the building, they were whistling and singing with these whistles and dancing. And that was the very first time that I accepted my culture. Sorry.
No, Lorraine, I apologize if I'm asking you to relive some of those very difficult experiences. So please accept my apology. It's not my intention to upset you, but I appreciate you.
No, yeah, I just there's just some days I can talk about it, and some days it's triggers. And I just want to compare what I saw that day when a soldier dies and they fire the rifles as the casket is being moved. That's what I saw. She was a very respected and honored Indigenous woman in my community. And it really hit me that it's okay. This is okay. This culture is okay. Because in residential school, they prevented us from learning our culture, practicing it. And here that day, I was able to practice and participate in my culture.
Lorraine, that is a very powerful moment. And again, thank you for sharing that. I think it's always a challenge when there are things that just, as you say, you have days that are better, days that are more challenging. And so thank you for sharing.
Yeah, so that was the kind of like a pivotal moment for me to accept my culture, because I would question everything as I was learning about the culture. And the thing was, is this acceptable to God? Am I going to be punished for this? Am I going to hell for this? Is this a sin? So all that I questioned. Is this the right thing to do? Because that was ingrained in me in residential school. Sin, always sinning, always being punished because that's a sin. And being, especially in the Catholic Church, going to confession and trying to find every little sin that you had as a child. You'd go to confession every week. Well, I swore 10 times. Like stuff like that. And trying to be perfect. You can't be perfect in this world because we don't live in a perfect world. So that was ingrained in me. And it's taken years to get that, to unlearn all that teaching that I got from the residential schools. But the key for myself in my healing journey is forgiveness. My faith has really helped me move through my journey of healing.
Yeah. You have a strong Christian belief, but it does not today impact the fact that you're a proud Ojibwayan woman. So you've got that kind of that blend, if I can say it that way. You've got that incredible blend. So let's talk a little bit, Lorraine, about the National Indigenous Residential School Museum of Canada. Give us a bit of a history. How did it get started? It being the National Indigenous Residential School Museums of Canada. How did it get started? And how did you become involved in it? Just give us a bit of a timeline, please.
When our current knowledge keeper advisor, Ernie Daniels, was chief at the time, and our current chair, Dennis Meegis, I think he was on council, they decided to look at the land. The land was transferred over from Indian Affairs, so they were able to acquire the land and the building.
And Lorraine, just to give context, when was that? Can you give us a sense of when that was?
I think it was back in the 80s.
Yeah, because the Indigenous Residential School, I think it opened, what, in 1915 initially?
Yeah, 1915, yeah. It shut down for a while for 1975. It shut down, and I think it's just sat there for a while, and the Long Plain decided to acquire the land through treaty land entitlement through with Indian Affairs. Yeah, and then I had moved into employment and training at the time, and I had been there for about 12 years, and I was feeling burnt out because I was working a lot of overtime and meeting deadlines, and I just wanted to start winding down because I was getting to my retirement years, and thought that this would be a good job for me to take on. Ernie Daniels was an advisor to council, I think, at the time, and there had been people working here off and on. It wasn't open consistently, and so he asked me if I would take over. So I did say yes, and I asked for a lateral transfer. So I got the job thinking it would be an easy job because it was a small museum, and thinking that this will be an easy job to do and to set it up. And little did I know that it was going to be turn into something more than what I had expected.
Yeah. Well, and as you talk about your lifelong journey of learning, I mean, you're teaching, but you're still learning. So Lorraine, I understand that in 2000, I just went onto your website just to get a bit of history. So in 2000, they renamed the building the Rufus Prince Building.
Yes.
And Rufus Prince was obviously played a huge role in Long Plains. Just tell us a little bit about Rufus Prince.
Rufus Prince, he was a World War II veteran, and he's done a lot of work with Long Plain as well as Dakota Ojibway Tribal Council. He was instrumental in setting up the Dakota Ojibway Tribal Council as well as the policing, and very well respected kid and just outspoken. He was also a resident school survivor that he attended school here, and so they named the building after him to honor him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just make a comment because I've heard this many, many times, Lorraine, from other elders, knowledge keepers, when they make reference to the fact that so many First Nations, Métis, Inuit men and women went to World War II to fight on behalf of Canada. And you think about the strained relationship that Indigenous peoples had with non-Indigenous peoples, and they were prepared to go stand side by side to fight for Canada. It's just an interesting observation because now I think it's a great opportunity to acknowledge people like Rufus Prince and many, many others who stood tall for this country called Canada.
And that's one of the projects that we want to actually start it, and it's kind of at a standstill because we have so many other things that we're working on, and to have an area to honor the veterans that went to war, and to have a place in the museum to honor them and acknowledge them. So that's one of the projects that we have going.
So, Lorraine, when you look at the role that you are now overseeing as the executive director, one of the questions may be, why is it important to have a museum that focuses on the National Indigenous Residential Schools?
To bring awareness as to what has happened in the residential school era, and to educate people so that they can learn about the history, because a lot of people are not aware of it. When we do have tours, we have survivors, elders that come out and share their story. I think that the individuals, the groups that come out need to put a face to the residential school era, and so that they know, yes, this actually happened, and to hear stories firsthand, and then to go through the tour to see. We have a lot of displays. We have songs. We have artifacts. We have a lot of content. We usually start off with a pre-contact, pre-residential school And then we have the residential school era. And then we're currently working on post-residential school. And then we're reclaiming and regaining our culture. We have regalia in there and some drums. People have donated. The majority of the stuff that we have is donated.
The sort of the number of people, Lorraine, that would come to visit the museum, would they mostly be non-Indigenous Canadians?
The majority of them are non-Indigenous. And we just had a group 2 weeks ago, the delegates from Taiwan. They were part of the police and fire games that we had here. Yeah. So they came, toured. There was about 24 of them. And we had survivors come and share their story, and elders. And they had a little barbecue for them. So, and had a taste of the Indigenous cuisine that they have. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Lorraine, the idea being that you are trying to create an educational experience for the visitors, as you say, to understand what the residential school process was about, the history. You say you're talking a lot of artifacts, but would people, if they came through the building, would they see an actual sort of example of what a school room would look like? Or is there a sense, or there photographs of what the sleeping accommodation would be? Tell me a little bit about what you mentioned, artifacts and a lot of things. What are people seeing when they come into the museum?
When they go into the area where the residential school starts, we have pictures of children that are being taken to the residential school either by truck, treated like cattle, going by boat, by plane. So it was all different types of transportation for them. So the first room would have that. Also, pictures of hair that was being shaved off and cut. And we also have a little mannequin child it's a replica of hair that was cut. The girl's hair was cut like, how Dora doll looks like, a Dora haircut. They were all cut the same way. And also, when you enter that room, there's the mannequin has a towel wrapped around her head. Because this is my experience and a lot of other resident school experience. So I'm able to share that too for a firsthand story. So they would put DDT in the hair, and that's the story we tell. And there's also a picture it was an original picture that was donated by a intergenerational survivor. His father had gone to Brandon, and he donated the picture, and it's a very dark picture of a priest where he has a strap and where he's hitting the young boys. And then you go into the next room, there's a replica of a dining room to just contrast where the staff ate with the fine china and where the children ate with just plastic plates. And then the next room is we have a bed that was retrieved from the former Birtle Residential Schools. We have that set up. Then we have pictures set up with the dorms where they have the beds and the bunk beds. We are always looking for stuff like that, bunk beds and that are replicas of what we had. And then the last room is actually we have three other rooms. I usually explain what's in the hallway between the two doors. They were separated. The hallway was separated, the girls' side and the boys' side. So the upstairs would have been the dorms, and the main floor would have been where the common area or the playroom. So the boys on one side, the girls on one side, and then there would have been the probably rooms for staff where they could sleep or office space, and children weren't allowed in between the hallways. They were separated. They destroyed the family unit, I guess, where if you had a sibling like a brother or sister, you weren't allowed to speak to them. But I think as the years went by, the rules started to relax.
Yeah. And then you say there's three rooms at the very end, Lorraine?
Yeah, there was three more rooms I didn't talk about. One is a room that's dedicated to the children that never came home. There's a lot of, again, there's artifacts in there, and also just people that have donated items. We had little shoes that were gifted back in the day when they first discovered the 215 unmarked graves. We brought those in because it was kind of a rainy season, and we have those in the room there, and talk about the children that never came home. We have Chani Winjack, his story in there that was donated by Argyle High School, Alternative High School. And then the room next door to it is it's a better story. It's the Glee Club that they formed here. Jack Harris back then was the administrator, and they started up a Glee Club. Actually, I was part of the Glee Club. I was already living in town, and I used to come here and just socialize with the kids. And I joined the Glee Club. The music director was my science teacher in Arthur Meehan, so he would pick me up for practice, or if we had to go out and we did fundraising, we'd go out to the different towns and sing the fundraise to go to Japan. And that was my main reason, was to go to Japan.
You were 15 or 16?
16 at the time, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Went to the World Fair in Osaka, Japan. We stayed in Tokyo most of the time, and we went and sang at the Canadian Pavilion in Osaka, 70.
Quite an experience, right?
Yes.
Yeah, from a young girl from Long Plains. Yeah, First Nation. Lorraine, just on the Glee Club, what sorts of songs would you be learning? Would they be traditional songs or?
No, they were just regular folk songs, I guess. There was one song they did sing in Cree. The majority of the kids that were on the Glee Club were from up north, and most of them were Cree. So then there was a few children that were Dakota and Ojibway. So it was a mixture. We actually got together last Orange Shirt Day, and we were able to get a hold of our music conductor. We came out and we did a few songs at Orange Shirt Day and did a little reunion. So that was good.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that must have been great. And I can see the smile on your face. It means a lot to you for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So Lorraine, you mentioned Orange Shirt Day, or National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which is the last day of September 30th. Tell me a little bit about what does that mean to you? And then I'd like to ask you a second question of that is, what would you like it to mean to non-Indigenous peoples?
I think it's a day of reconciliation, and to come out to honor the children that were in residential school, and the ones that never made it home. But also it's a day to celebrate, to get together, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous.
Because I think that's one of the things that I think is very important, is that it is a day, but reconciliation is not a day or about a day for sure. So what have you got going on? What do you got planned?
So this year I wanted to do something different, totally different. It's for everybody, not just the Indigenous people, but to come out and celebrate together. So this year is called the Healing Dance of Reconciliation. We've done a partnership with Portage Community Revitalization Corporation, and last year they organized a walk from the city of Portage, from City Hall, and all the way to the residential school here. And it just fills me with joy, because it was so good to see these people walking, just a sea of orange shirts. And we also had Dakota Ojibway Police Services. They came in the front, and they had their vehicle, and kind of like being the front and guiding them, and it was so beautiful to see. And so we're doing that again this year. PCRC is going to be doing the walk again. So they do that. It's called a Reconciliation Honor Walk from City Hall to here. So they'll be escorted again by the First Nation policing. And then we have our of course, our opening prayer and the welcoming remarks. We have different delegates. We're hoping that they'll all show up, and the mayor usually shows up too. So we have Mayor Sharon Knox coming, and our chief as well too. We have a guest speaker this year. She did a reconciliation project with us, Kirsten Lindblom. She's a professor at the University of Wisconsin. She came out this year with a group of 7 of her students, and she wanted to give back to the community, because her grandfather had ran the school for a couple of years, and she didn't realize the impact the residential schools have had on survivors.
So her grandfather's non-Indigenous.
Yeah, he's non-Indigenous. Yeah, and she wanted to give back. So on a project, we have a garden in the back. They bought all the equipment, and so we have a raised garden in the back that they worked on, and then we also worked with them and taught them some of our cultural activities, cultural teachings. So we did that as well too, and so they were here for a whole week. We worked on some of the things that we did with them was did the healing garden. We did some activities like we did songs with them. They did the washing of the tears at the end. They did some beading. They learned how to bead some stuff, and they did some kind of a sharing circle, like a medicine wheel, with one of the elders. And they also heard one of the elders share his story about his residential school experience. So that's who will be doing the. We've invited her back to come and that.
That's interesting. Yeah. So she's an American.
Actually, she's originally from Portage, so
Oh, really?
she's moved to Wisconsin. She's a teacher there, professor. Yeah,
Oh, interesting. Okay, so she does have, I mean, other than her grandfather who was involved in this in as involved in the residential school, she also has some, being from Portage, she has some community roots.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So, Lorraine, when I asked about what you're doing on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, Orange Shirt Day, great explanation. Thank you so much. If people want to come, is it just an open house? Should they be aware of anything? And if they do want to come, where should they go to City Hall to be part of the walk, or what would you advise on that day?
We're going to have save the date. We'll be posting it on. We have a Facebook page. We also have the website for the walk. It's usually PCRC that organizes that for us.
Okay, and PCRC is
Portage Community Revitalization Corporation.
okay.
Yeah, they do a lot of work with Portage area, a lot of projects, activities, and so they'll be organizing that. They also helped organize the dancing part of the that'll happen in the afternoon. So they've been able to get a Filipino dance troupe, but there's going to be about 20 of them. We also have a Ukrainian dance troupe that they organize as well too.
Wow.
We've also been able to acquire a Métis fiddler, and then we have jigging by some youth that'll be doing that as well. And then we'll have our Indigenous dance troupe. So it's all about dancing this year, a healing dance of reconciliation.
Healing and dancing.
Dancing is just universal, and everybody brings their unique style of dance, their cultural dance, their regalia. So I'm just really looking forward to see all the different types, dances. And so that's going to happen in the afternoon. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do the final one will be a dance of reconciliation, all nations. And so they're either going to probably dance in their regalia and all dance together, either in a powwow. We have a drum group, and hopefully we'll have a round dance where everybody will join and have for lunch. We're also have this year we've included, it's called mole guacamole. They're Mexican food. So we're going to have we've already spoken to them, and also we have our indigenous cuisine. So it's going to be a local. So
Yeah, a tremendous. It sounds fantastic, Lorraine. I mean, it really sounds incredible. And you mentioned that you've got a Facebook site and a website. Your Facebook site would that be, if you went to somebody's listening saying, "What's your Facebook?" How would I find you on Facebook?
National Indigenous Residential School Museum.
Okay, and then your website is
again, it's the National Indigenous Residential School Museum. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So Lorraine, I want to sort of look at a couple of things before we find our off ramp on this conversation. When I asked you what is going to happen, you gave a very detailed program of what you're planning for that day. What do you hope that non-Indigenous people will take away from your museum, our museum? I don't know if I can say our. I apologize if I'm trying to say it. I mean, what do you want people to learn, both from, and I don't know if you can tie in what they could learn from a journey through the National Indigenous Residential Schools Museum that you are overseeing, and also the Day of Truth and Reconciliation. I don't know if those two can be tied together, but I'm interested to get your perspective of what you would like, or your hope is that from non-Indigenous people, what would they learn? What would you hope that their takeaway would be?
I think for me, sometimes we set invisible boundaries. Okay, I'm scared to go there, and I'm not going to go there. So to be a welcoming place, a warm place, to be inviting, and that this is a place where you can come and learn and share respectfully, just a safe place to come and learn about our culture, also about the dark era of residential school, and that we can all work together, and that there is hope for everybody, that we can work towards, walk together in unity, towards truth and reconciliation. It's a hard truth, but it has to be told. And there's a scripture I'm thinking about. The truth will set you free. And my hope is that everybody will learn. I know the kids in school are learning about the residential school, and we've had families that come here, and the parents tell us that that their child is teaching them because they're learning it in school. So which is good. It's all about educating the public. This is what happened, and not to take it away and not to blame yourself, because it happened back in the day when the government of the day and the churches of the day thought they were doing right, but it wasn't. It was harming the indigenous people, and that we're all free to live in this world, and to live and practice our cultures, like around the world, the indigenous people around the world, that it's okay to practice that culture, to be accepting, and it's all about, we're all the same. We all have everyone has a spirit, and just to move forward, I guess, to celebrate. I guess this is about celebrating life, and that we can move past the damage that was done, but to be aware that there's still people that are still hurting, and there's some people that have been able to overcome, but there's always that it stays, like for myself, you get triggered, to help one another, to lift each other up, and not to keep a person down, but to be able to say, how can we help? What can we do to work together to make our world a better place?
Yeah. And for somebody who, as a young student in a residential school system, to be told that you're a sinner, that things are bad, that there's all of this negativity, for you to be able to leave a message of hope and a journey that we can walk together and become human beings and respect one another. I can't think of a more powerful way to say thank you for taking some time to share your personal journey and what you're doing as the executive director of the National Indigenous Residential School Museum of Canada. Thank you for your conversation. Thank you for your time, your wisdom and knowledge. And I look forward to the opportunity of visiting you and visiting the museum and having an opportunity to walk through it.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts, and to be able to share what we're doing out here in the museum, and hopefully that we'll have more tourists, more visitors, and to come out and just learn firsthand what happened here, and it was from a place of hurting to now it's a place of healing, and to bring healing through the Reconciliation Day, that people will learn and just come out and celebrate with us through dance and eating. People like to eat, and people like to dance, and it just lifts up people.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And I appreciate that. So, Lorraine Daniels, thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciate all you've done. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Humans on Rights. A transcript of this episode is available by clicking the link in the show notes of this episode. Humans on Rights is recorded and hosted by Stuart Murray. Social media marketing by Buffy Davey. Music by Doug Edmond. For more, go to humanrightshub.ca.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.